Welcome back to the Pocket Network Podcast, a podcast for real estate professionals like you to innovate your world. I'm your host, Margarita Petrosian, and each week I sit down with real estate professionals to talk about industry hot topics, common challenges, and so much more. This week we have Sevan Gorginian with us. He's an attorney. Welcome, Sevan.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So let's jump into your background first.
Sure.
So bachelor's, law school, and then straight into law. So is there anything else that you want to add? Details, anything for our viewers?
Sure. There's much more. I just remembered my, after law school, everything I did. But after I graduated, I went to UCLA, go Bruins. And then I actually took about 5 years off and I actually worked and I actually got to work and live in China.
Oh, wow.
So it was very eye-opening. And then I came back and I went to law school. I went to Loyola Law School. And after that, I graduated and I worked at a mid-sized firm and I went to a big firm. And in 2017, I started my own practice.
That's amazing. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And I can see that it's pretty successful because you do have 3 locations.
Yes.
And you're also a professor on top of all of that going on.
I am.
Yeah. And you teach at 3 different universities?
Now it's 2.
2, okay.
I was teaching at Glendale University College of Law in Glendale, but I'm not teaching there anymore for a lot of reasons. But I'm teaching at Glendale College and I teach at CSUN. I teach at their business school.
Okay, perfect. So in business, do you teach business law?
Yeah, I teach the lower division business law at Glendale College, and I absolutely love it. I've been there for 8 years now. And I also teach the upper division business law at CSUN.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Hopefully your students are loving it, because I know from personal experience, business law was a tough class, and I couldn't get myself to want to even pick up the textbook. It was so difficult for me.
Right. No, it is. It's a very difficult topic, but fortunately, I think I've made it simplified enough that the students really enjoy it. And there's some topics I'll talk about tonight, and hopefully, your audience will also enjoy it. Yeah,
I can imagine being taught directly from an attorney with real life knowledge and experience to bring as examples. That probably would have made the class a lot easier. So good for you. Good for you for teaching the students in a way that they can see from someone that directly applies it.
Right.
Okay, perfect. So China, you said China. That is interesting. Never heard that, especially from an Armenian. So what made you go to China?
I had after graduating UCLA, I was interested in commercial real estate. And I got to work in some of the downtown projects in downtown LA where they were converting the condos into lofts. And there came an opportunity. There was a hotel project in Macau. And the person I replaced over there quit. So they needed someone to go over there. And they said, hey, Sevan, you want to go? And I'm like, sure. Of course, at the first look, I'm like, where's Macau? I'm like looking out on the map.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I'm like, oh, wow, it's pretty cool. It's in Southeast Asia, right by Hong Kong. And it's an absolute incredible place to be. So
do you speak Mandarin?
No, I know how to count to 10.
Okay, I'm sure that was very useful.
It was useful, so I can kind of tell them, how many things I want.
Okay.
I remembered how to say the chicken, not the pigeon.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Because one time I got pigeon, I'm like, oh, that's not chicken.
Yeah.
So I got to say, I want the chicken,
something
not
you
the
might
pigeon.
not need in the U.S.
Right. So, and also the address of where where the condo was. Okay. That was important.
So your job, you spoke English, and was there a lot of people speaking English there?
Oh, absolutely. They speak primarily English over there, especially in Hong Kong. It's a very metropolitan city, and it's primarily spoken in English.
Love it. Yeah, in a globalized world, I guess it's just to be expected that everyone picks one central language to speak, to do business, to make it easier.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. So I'm assuming that you took extra classes in bankruptcy and trust, or is that not a thing?
No, it is. In law school, you get to specialize in what you want to do during the 3rd year.
Okay.
And I took 2 bankruptcy courses, and I absolutely loved it. And I fell in love with the area of law. That's what I focus on primarily. And I also did take a wills and trust class, and I really enjoyed that. Graduating from law school, people always want to know, what can I do? I knew what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to do, criminal law. I was scared if I lose, they're going to come kill me.
Okay.
I didn't want to do family law because I don't want to get involved in the family dynamics and children. So I really gravitated towards either real estate, tax, bankruptcy, or trust. Okay. So
It's great to know what you don't want to do so you can avoid that. But also, I've never heard a lawyer say that about criminal law. I've heard a lot of people say that because my sister's a criminal lawyer. And a lot of people have said, oh, aren't you scared if the criminal comes after you? And that's never been an issue for her. So that's really funny that you said that.
Yeah. No, I'm just scared, and but I'm sure it's a great field. But it's just not for me.
Based on my knowledge on watching all the episodes of SVU, it looks like a very interesting field from my professional opinion on TV.
Yeah.
Okay, so we said that you have 3 locations, and then you do the teaching on the side. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. So, and then you also have a family.
I do.
So let's talk work-life balance. What advice can you give to young professionals watching? How can they balance that in a healthy way?
Sure. And if my wife is listening, she would say, you don't have a work-life balance.
Okay.
But I try very hard. I am married to my best friend from the 4th grade. Her name is Sevana. It's my name with an A. You
my God.
You can't
you guys
get it wrong.
Were made for each other.
Right.
Yeah, God was like, these two.
These two need to meet. And she's a professional chef. I get to eat very well, so I'm very
lucky.
Happy. She's now a full-time mother taking care of my beautiful daughter, Ariv.
Congratulations on your new baby.
Thank you. She keeps us very entertained. But as far as work-life balance between my family, my law practice, and also teaching, it is difficult. It's people always say, how do you do all these in your day? And it's just, I think
how do you do all of this, and then you found time to come on our podcast? Thank you for that.
Oh, my pleasure. No, I mean, I really came to it because I wanted to support you guys.
Thank you.
And I wanted to just talk about how to balance those 3. I don't have a magic formula. I think my personality is like a type A personality. If I don't have like 100 things to do in a day, I feel really unproductive. So it's, I can do this podcast. I can go to that networking event because I have to remain busy.
Yeah.
So, but once you get into a habit of, organizing your life, it becomes much more streamlined. So the way I help myself to create time is I streamline every process. So like my law practice is very streamlined, and it's primarily paperless. Okay. So everything is online. I can control everything online. So
you can work from anywhere.
Right. And my teaching is also streamlined. I've created all my lecture notes. I know exactly what it's supposed to do, when the midterms are, and I give myself deadlines on when to grade. The school doesn't have deadlines for us. Yeah. But I have a system in place that I'm like, I got to get these graded. I got to do this. So.
And do you have an assistant for that, like a teacher's assistant?
I do, but I have a very difficult time delegating tasks. That's a big vice of mine. So the school does provide a graduate student that can assist, but my nature is to do everything myself. So I do it myself because I have to know that it's done this way. So.
It makes sense in your legal practice, but for teaching, like just grading tests, if you want to take my advice, I definitely think that you should try to learn to do that. That way, I know you said you love to keep busy, but keep busy in a different way, in a way where you're not as stressed out or your mind isn't having to work the entire time, whether it's just playing with your baby or cooking with your wife.
Right. No, I agree. And I am going to start to use the graduate assistant more. We are going back to class, which I'm very happy about. And
in person?
In person. So knock on wood, I generally get a lot of students. I'm going to have about 120 students.
Wow.
And it's a very, very large class. And, people say, oh, teaching is so fun. I'm like, yeah. And I take a picture of the exams I have to grade. Yeah. So, and I text them, I said, how's your winter going? Yeah. Look at mine.
Oh, coming from tiny schools for both undergrad and for my grad, it's not that the school was tiny, just my classes were always much smaller. Right. I cannot imagine 120 students, because some of my professors took weeks to get back on a test. Right. And there was like 10 to 15 of us in class. Yeah.
No, I just try to get to it because I don't want it to delay because it just snowballs into the next event. But just I try to get to it. Keeps
building up.
Right. It keeps building up and the students get impatient. Yeah. So again, I do have a process of how the grading is done. It works for me. But I generally really enjoy it. I love teaching.
Yeah, that's amazing that you found something so early on that you love to do.
Yeah.
And you're able to do it while practicing something that you love equally.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So about the balance, one thing that I really wanted to point out, I actually I wish I was good with names because there was this amazing woman who had such a successful career. And I want to say she was the original founder of the QVC channel. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to say it was her.
Yeah.
So I'll look into it later and tag her if I can find it. But she said that because she had a few kids and she was so successful, she had such an impressive resume. And when she was asked about work-life balance, she says, the only answer I ever have to that is there is never a balance. She's like, the way I balance it is 1 week, I might have to focus on my kids more because they need my support. Another week, I might have to focus on my job more because that's where my energy is needed. So that's something to think about, that you don't feel like a failure just because you feel like you haven't given family and your job equal amounts of attention that week. You balance it in your own way.
Thank you. I'm now grateful to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Just for that reason.
Yeah.
Okay. I will remember to give this analogy to every single podcast guest so they could come back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So when did you become interested in teaching? That's something that I wanted to ask.
You know, I've always, it sounds cliche, but I've always been interested in teaching. I love educating young students. I love to learn myself. I like to write myself. So I've always been interested in education. I do want to retire teaching. So to get to my end goal, I got to put in the time now to kind of retire teaching. So
question about that.
Yeah.
Do you mean you want to retire teaching as in once you're done with everything else, you want to continue teaching?
Oh, right.
To old age?
Right. That's what I meant.
Got it.
Not actually retired now.
Okay, got it.
But because I don't want to practice law forever.
Yeah.
Okay. So around, let's say 55 or, 60, I want to just stop practicing law and just focus on teaching. And that will be the ending of my career, which sounds pretty sad.
It doesn't sound sad.
But I want to retire teaching. I remember in law school, there was a teacher that had an accent. And I asked him, I said, like, what do you do? I haven't seen him on campus. And he says, well, I'm from the University of, it was either Switzerland or Sweden. And, with like a Swedish accent, that actually sounded Russian. But he says that he visits schools every semester. He said, I'm a visiting professor. So he jumps school to school and he teaches for a semester.
That is
and then
so
he goes
cool.
to somewhere else. So I'm
different countries or just within the U.S.?
Yeah, no, just different countries.
Wow.
He came from Sweden and he goes, and
what a life.
He goes, I'm going to go to Italy and then over there. And then I'm just like staring at him. I said, you're my idol. And that's what I want to do, retire teaching.
Have you told your wife? Does she want to do this with you?
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Absolutely, yeah. So she wants to travel and we'll travel and I'll teach. And you get to live in the country, you get paid.
Yeah.
And, so it'll be very fun.
That sounds amazing. I never knew that was the thing.
Right.
Yeah, I've had teachers or professors from other countries, but should have probably asked if they're a visiting professor because the next year I don't check to see if they're back. Right. I wonder if that's more common than we're thinking because it sounds like something so different and so cool to me.
Yeah, no, it is. It's actually very common. So you can like I know the American legal system.
Yeah.
Let's say I go to, Sweden. I could tell them, oh, well, this is how we do, family trust and bankruptcy in America. This is our laws over there, and teach a semester webinar over there.
That's actually interesting that you pointed that out because even in America, different states, the laws are different. So when you go there, you're teaching just true American law, or would you have to learn what their country's doing and compare? Like what would the courses be like? Yeah,
so the courses are generally comparative law, where they say this is how it's done in this country, and then in this host country, this is how it's done. So the students in that country are able to relate. You can't just go and say, well, this is our laws in America. First of all, no one's going to care because they're going to say, well, why the hell are you teaching me this?
How does that change my life?
How does it change my life? But once you teach them that this is other ways to think and this is the other ways we do the law in America. So I think it really opens up their eyes on, that there's different viewpoints.
Yeah. And I think this is what a lot of countries and companies especially are doing.
Right.
So we've discussed diversity on this podcast before, how important it is and how people are recognizing that. So with universities also recognizing that if their students are educated, doesn't matter if you're never going to leave your country. If you're educated in American law, in Italian law, doesn't matter. You can pull lessons from each thing. And there's a lot of lawyers that go on to be judges or political figures doesn't matter. You can make a big difference. Just opening your eyes to what other people are doing, what options you have out there.
Right.
You can innovate by using common practices from elsewhere.
Right.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And the other thing is when perhaps I'm more proud to be an American, but when you look at other countries' laws, you really understand how our legal system is, in my opinion, by far the best.
Yeah.
We truly live in a wonderful, wonderful country. So, and even our legal system is very, very fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
I've heard so much of both sides, and it's interesting to hear how you only have positive things to say about that. And that's honestly refreshing to see that in your experience with maybe it's the area that you've been working at where maybe the judges are more fair or whatever the reasoning is behind it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I remember there's a Supreme Court Justice Scalia was visiting USC. He's passed away now.
Yeah.
And he asked the crowd, he said, what makes us the most freest country in the world? And everyone was saying, our elections, my First Amendment. And he said, no, it's the balance of power between the executive branch, the judicial, and the legislative branch. Because when those three are checking each other, it makes us the freest country in the world, and it makes us, I think, the best country in the world.
Yeah.
So it's not just like one president ruling everything. There's a balance of power. So, and I'll never forget that. And it's very, very true.
Yeah,
it's very true.
Hopefully the U.S. never has a chance of seeing a dictator or someone who acts like one. Right.
And we even have our appellate system is incredible. Like the fact that, let's say for whatever reason, the lower court goes against you, you have a right to appeal. There are countries that you don't have a right to appeal. Mm-hmm. They said it, that's it, you're done. So I've had to advise some clients. I'm like, well, if it doesn't work, we can appeal. They're like, oh my God, what? I'm like, yeah. Which is great.
Yeah, I love that because there are some rare scenarios where we've seen, especially over the past couple of years, where a lot of information with whether it's DNA evidence, whatever it is, advancements in technology, and people who have been wrongfully convicted are able to come out. And just thinking of that now in another country, maybe they would have never had that opportunity. Right. The evidence maybe would not have been stored for that long.
Right. That's true.
Okay, love it. So let's jump in deeper into your professional aspect for relating to real estate directly.
Sure.
So most of your clients, are they the homeowner or the real estate professional? Who do you represent?
They are mostly the homeowners.
Okay.
The homeowners, and again, it could be from the bankruptcy perspective. People come to me because they're facing a lot of debt. They're behind in their mortgage payments. They have a judgment on their house. It could be a whole litany of things. So I help them get rid of their debt, keep their home, and then come out more with a fresh start.
Okay. So typically our audience is the real estate professional. So for anyone watching, if you do have a client who reaches out to you who's struggling, whether like what Sevan said, whether it's with their debt or whatever it is concerning their home, then you can immediately refer them to a lawyer. So a local lawyer, Sevan would be able to help in California or whoever it is in your state. And so your client can see that you're supporting them in all aspects. So you're not just there to do what you're qualified to do. You can refer your services to someone else, to a professional that can help your client during a really difficult time. And we've talked about this in the podcast before, where all these professionals, whether it's lawyers or real estate agents, they're not just there to make a quick buck. They're there to help the client throughout the journey, from beginning until these horrible, hopefully not end of their home ownership. So like Sevan said, one of the top questions that I had for you, if you are filing for personal bankruptcy, I was going to ask, what happens? You lose your home. And you said you don't have to.
Right. No, you don't lose your home. Okay. Everyone thinks I'm going to lose my house. It's very rare. Recently, California just passed a law where you can keep up to $600,000 of your equity in your house and still file bankruptcy. So let's say you have $50,000 of credit cards. If you have $1 million house, and the loan is $400,000, there's $600,000 of equity in your house that's built up. That person with $1 million house, which is probably like a 1-bedroom in Glendale, they can file bankruptcy, keep that $1 million house because you're within the $600,000 homestead exemption, and get rid of all your other debts. More importantly, if there are any judgments that are recorded against your house, those can also be eliminated. So clients will come to me saying, Sevan, I have, $50,000 of credit card debt, this SBA loan or whatever, plus, Visa and American Express sued me, and I have 2 judgments on my house.
Because of the credit cards?
Because of the credit card, and so they were sued, and now they put the judgment on their house.
Okay.
So if they go to sell their house, those judgments would have to be paid before they get the money in their pocket.
Of course.
Through a bankruptcy, we're able to eliminate those judgments and strip them off the property. So they don't have to pay those judgments anymore. So it's a very useful tool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and speaking of which, now seeing how our economy is doing with respect to real estate, I always advise my real estate agent friends, those listening, the way judgments work is if I get a judgment against Margarita, I won't. If I get a judgment,
my sister's a lawyer, so don't worry.
Oh, a criminal lawyer at that. Okay.
She can do everything.
So now, okay, is she gonna pop out from somewhere?
She's right here.
If I get a judgment against Margarita, and let's say it's a $20,000 judgment, she's gonna say, well, Sevan, I don't have anything, and I'm like, okay, you're right. If I take that judgment and I record it in LA County, that judgment actually floats until you buy a property. So if you buy a property, let's say not this year, maybe in 5 years, you've forgotten about Sevan.
Yeah.
You buy a property and you buy a house and it says Margarita on there. If that name matches the judgment I have, the judgment will automatically attach to your new house.
Wow.
So you
up to 5 years?
No. Once it's recorded, it's like forever.
Oh, wow.
It's just constantly floating. It's waiting for Margarita to buy a house in her name.
Yeah.
So the reason why I bring that up is everyone is buying homes these days. And I tell my real estate agent friends, I say, look, before you close escrow, please ask your clients, hey, Margarita, have you been sued in the last 10 years? Maybe she'll say, oh, yeah, I remember, Visa sued me. Go search to see if there's a judgment in her name. Because
it would be public information?
It would be public information.
Okay.
And because the last thing you want is when you close escrow, you get a letter saying, congratulations on closing your house. Oh, by the way, there's now a judgment that's recorded. And the judgment earns 10% a year.
Oh, wow.
So
in 10 years, it might be worth the value of your home.
Right. It's going to, it goes up exponentially. So nobody wants to wake up after escrow saying, oh, by the way, there's a judgment on your house.
Yeah.
So please check for judgments before you close escrow. If there is, I recommend don't buy it in their name.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's really important information, and thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Because that's definitely not a question that I had prepared. It didn't pop up on my internet search on what to ask a lawyer in real estate. Sure. So everyone watching at home, remember that, jot that down. Make sure that's one of the questions that you ask your clients whenever you're selling, or when you're purchasing a home with a client.
Right.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. And then let's jump to business bankruptcy.
Sure.
Because it's different than personal.
It is.
So if a client does have a business bankruptcy and the business is in their name, does that change anything with home ownership or buying?
No, it doesn't. The home ownership process is going to be tied to their personal name. Now, with respect to the business, most of the business debts will have a personal guarantee that is tied to their name.
Okay. So
if you go and try to rent, like Americana on brand, and you create a company, okay, it says Margarita LLC. Rick Caruso, the owner, is not going to rent it to your LLC. They're going to say, well, we don't know what this entity does. We want your name on it too. We want you to personally guarantee. So even though it's a business debt, you're also liable on that debt. So that debt might reflect when you're going to buy a house, it's like, wait a minute, you personally guaranteed these debts, so it's kind of on you too. So that's kind of like how it works with the home buying process. But if you keep the debts only on a business, this is not my debt, it's my LLC that has the debt. Mm-hmm. It's not yours personally.
Yeah. So
you can go buy a house. The debt won't reflect on your purchasing power.
Okay, awesome. Okay, that's also very good information to know.
Thank you.
Another audience that we have would be, let's say, loan officers. And it's people that not only do mortgage loans, but other type of loans. So that's something that you should definitely talk to your clients about for anyone listening.
Yeah. I also have another tip for my loan real estate, that didn't make sense, my loan agent friends, there you go, nowadays it's very important to kind of check the source of funds that they're using to buy the real estate.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are using SBA money to purchase the real estate. I always tell people, they're like, oh, well, we got 40 offers over asking.
How many of those are their money?
Right. They're like, oh, we overbid by $100,000. I always, I think and I ask them, I said, where do you think they got that extra $100,000 from to overbid? Well, it's the SBA money. Now, if you don't check the source of that fund, you don't know. You think it's their income, but it's not. It's the SBA loan. And when the SBA finds out that you actually didn't use it for payroll, you used it to buy the one-bedroom $1 million condo in Glendale, they're going to be pretty upset and they can call the loan.
Yeah.
So it's going to be
So what
bad.
happens if, let's say, they find out a year after, you just lose your house?
No, you won't lose your house, but they're going to say you breached the agreement that says you're supposed to use the loan for business purposes, but you used it to overbid on a home or remodel your backyard, and we want the loan back.
Okay.
Well, where am I going to get this $100,000 from? And by the way, that's going to be like $140,000 when they stick you with the penalties. So that's something that concerns me. So again, I highly recommend loan agent friends, please check the source of those funds. Don't just trust your client.
Yeah. And a lot of time, I think with loan officers, they're only required to check a couple months back for income. And some clients just wouldn't tell you.
Right.
So just be very upfront and transparent with the client and say, if this is where the funds are coming from, do it at your own risk, because this is what can happen months or years from now.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome advice. This is actually really good stuff where I haven't taken the real estate exam, so I don't know if these questions pop up, but they definitely should. This is something I would want my real estate agent to definitely discuss with me ahead of time.
Yeah.
Okay. And then another question I had. So I looked into, since every state is different with law, so California doesn't require lawyers for real estate transactions. So now you, as a lawyer with a lot of experience in the industry, would you recommend that people retain a lawyer for big transactions like buying a home?
I believe so. I think, fortunately, we have a lot of fantastic real estate agents, especially in our Armenian community. They're very smart. They're very capable. So I think for those, you don't necessarily need it. I think for the more complex ones, when they're structuring deals involving different types of loans, et cetera, if the transaction will involve somehow, selling another property to buy this property, those I would recommend you to get a lawyer. I always say, especially, this is kind of off topic, but even when it comes to setting up a business, people will say, well, I could just go onto LegalZoom, or somewhere else, and I'll just create it. I said, look, LegalZoom just fills out forms for you. What you need is the actual advice. Maybe the LLC is not good for you. So people create it, and sometimes LegalZoom does it wrong, okay? And then you don't realize that it's actually done wrong, and maybe what you needed is a S corp. So same thing with real estate is, sure, it might look, easy and you don't need it, but I think same thing with setting up a business. Pay the $500 to a business law attorney. Have them look at it.
There's a reason they went through 3 years of specialized schooling.
Right. It's like, give the $500 and have them review it and give you the advice of which one you need. Same thing with real estate. If you're spending, $500,000 to buy a big property, spend $500, $1,000 on a real estate attorney to take a look at the transaction, because it could save you in the end. Yeah.
And if you're worried about the fees, there's a ton of people out there who are just starting. Their fees are a little less than someone more experienced, but it doesn't mean that they don't know what they're doing. They might actually remember laws or something better than someone who's more experienced, just because they just read about it.
Right.
Or they just worked on it in their internship. Whatever the reasoning is, the people that have the degree who've passed the bar, especially in California, the bar is so difficult that if they've passed the bar, I trust them.
Yeah. No, I agree. And, most people will also just do it for free. I mean, I do a lot of pro bono work, but most people will try to help. So, but definitely, if you're questioning it, I would say get a third pair of eyes to look at it.
Yeah, if it doesn't feel right, always make sure that you have your backup plan.
Right.
Okay, perfect. And then, so we talked about bankruptcies, and then another area that you specialize in is trusts, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so by trust, do you mean like inheritance?
Yeah, inheritance is a component to it, but what I talk about is just like simple family trusts. And this is somewhere new I just started my practice in, because I've always wanted to do it. I've always wanted to do tax. estate planning, and bankruptcy.
These are, I think, the three topics that I've heard the least amount of people always wanting to do. So good for you.
Everyone wants to do PI. I don't do any PI. And I can't do criminal law for the reasons we've said. But I really enjoyed those three topics. And once, I'm able to, I'm also going to get into tax. But I recently, going back to how I run my practice, it's been very efficient. My bankruptcy practice, I have a great team that they've actually allowed me to kind of focus more on establishing more on the estate planning. But I do that also. I help people set up trust. I help people kind of figure out their estate plans. And it comes from my teaching background that when I look at how complex it is, people kind of get scared about it. And I'm like, look, it's really simple. It's like really simplified. So my goal is to simplify it. So that's one of the, I guess, the good traits I have is, and when you see me marketing, I always say simplified. I just keep it simple. People have complicated, but it's really not that complicated.
Yeah. I read online that, and I don't know if this is true, but I read online that you can technically set up your own trusts without an attorney.
Yes.
That blows my mind. So have you seen a lot of people doing that and then running to you to fix it?
Sure. I mean, look, in America, you don't need lawyers. Okay. You don't need a lawyer for anything. You can defend yourself in a criminal case yourself. You could do your bankruptcy yourself. You don't need lawyers. Lawyers are there to guide you on the nuances and how to get to, from A to Z. So you don't need a lawyer to establish your trust or your estate planning. There are websites just like LegalZoom. There are other websites that you can use to do it. But again, it's very cookie cutter, and they tell you, we're not giving you advice.
Yeah.
You just fill out a form. And they populate it, and they go, here you go, But I have seen people bring me documents they've filled out, and instantly I could see a lot of holes. For example, let's talk about their will. The will, there are no witnesses, and it's not even notarized. It's just their will.
Yeah.
Is it effective? Sure, but it should be witnessed.
But if someone contests it,
right,
then what happens?
Then it could be deemed invalid. It's like, oh no, that's not what it is, and you're not around anymore to defend yourself.
Exactly.
So again, I highly recommend to use an attorney to do it, even though it might sound simple.
Yeah, I mean, okay. In America, you technically don't need a mechanic. With a simple YouTube search, you can probably learn to do anything on your car. Now, would I be able to do any of that, or would I break my car and then end up having to spend a lot more to fix it? Compare that, a car, to the law. I feel like the law is a lot more complicated, and it's a lot more difficult for YouTube to teach you whatever to do in your personalized situation. So just like you would need someone that specializes in your car, then you should treat your life the same, because legal stuff, that's your life.
Right. I mean, I think you should just look at it as an investment. I'm creating this estate plan for my children. I want the house to be protected, all this stuff. It's, well, how much is that worth to you? That's a pretty big fancy house, your children, etc. So why not spend some money to do it, And I think it's very reasonable, to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And for all the professionals watching, if you agree, let your clients know. Let them know that this makes a lot more sense, because a lot of people will try to do it on your own. And in the long run, you're saving them a lot of time and a lot more money, because they might just have to run back to a lawyer in a stressful situation just to make sure what they did was correct, or to redo it.
Right. And I think it's the same in any field. I mean, even in real estate. Yeah. Do you need a real estate agent to help sell your house? No.
Now, should you hire one?
Should you hire one? Yes, because they bring so much value. Because if you were to sell it for $500,000, maybe you're not marketing it correctly, and maybe you could have sold it for $600,000. So was it worth the extra 3%, 6% commission, whatever it is? Absolutely.
And you never really truly know the value of your house right now, because all of these websites like Zillow can recommend or estimate, like, oh, other houses in your area say for this much, but they don't know how much work you've done in your house. You might end up getting double that amount. Who knows?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, and a professional can point that out. So also just more about trust. I read online, again, according to Dr. Google or whatever you want to call it. There's different types of trusts. So in your opinion, which one would be the best for real estate?
So, that's actually a good segue when you say there's different kinds of trusts. this is where I step in to kind of help my clients. There aren't different types of trust, and that's where people get confused. They're like, oh, there's a land trust, there's a revocable, irrevocable. No, there's only one. There's only one trust. What makes it different is what goal you have it to do. Okay, so think about a trust, and this is the way I explain it to my clients, is consider it your own suitcase. That's all it is. Or you can think about it as an imaginary box. So when you create a trust, you're creating Margarita's imaginary box. Then I say, okay, Margarita, what do you want to put in your box? Oh, I want to put this water bottle. Okay, anything else? No. Okay, who do you want this water bottle to go to? I want it to go to my niece. Okay, so, and that's it. Now you can create one box just for this. We can create another box. Oh, I have real estate, I want it to go in there, etc. Most people create one trust to hold all their assets, which is very common. But there are different types of trusts. It's the purpose of the trust. So there's charitable trust. It's this trust, I create this trust, I put $10,000 and it's supposed to go to the Armenia Fund and starting in year 2030. So I think that's the way to think about it, is it's just your own suitcase.
And you definitely recommend anyone who buys a home to immediately create this trust? Absolutely.
I highly recommend properties to be held in trust for several reasons. And every time I do a speaking engagements, a podcast or training, I give these three scenarios that I'm going to give to the audience. And I want you to kind of put yourself in this position and realize, gee, what would happen if this were to occur? These are three separate clients that came to me. I had a wife, and for those that have seen me talk about this before, sorry, it's the same three examples.
I've never heard of it.
Because they're fantastic.
Ignore everyone else.
All right, then I'll talk to just Margarita about it. So I had this woman call me, and she says, my husband passed away. He was like in his late 40s, very young guy. The house they bought, it was only under his name.
Okay.
So let's just say Jack. It was only under Jack's name.
And they're legally married?
Yeah, they're married. And they've been married for a very long time. But the house was only under his name. He unfortunately passed away suddenly. And she mourned. And as she says, obviously, I can't live in the house, too many memories, etc. So she came to sell the house. So she contacted probably one of the wonderful agents listening to this and says, help me sell this house. Well, the title company looked at the title and they said, let's just call her, Tina. Mm-hmm. I said, Tina, the house title only says Jack. Who is he? Well, it's my husband. And he's passed away. Well, how can you sell this house that doesn't have your name on it? Just think about it. How can you sell a car without your name on it?
So, okay, here's where I'm confused. I just assumed that if someone passes away, everything they own just goes to the next living family member.
True.
Okay.
So this is how it works. So that house that has his name on it, she can't sell it until her name goes on title.
Okay, got it.
They did not have a trust. So what happens in those situations, yes, it is going to go to her, but it first has to go through what's called probate.
Okay.
Probate court is there to take your assets, for me to take this, let's say this water bottle, and to say, Margarita, prove to me this water bottle is yours, So same thing with the woman. The house had to go through the probate process.
And that comes with its own fees.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's like, I think she'll probably spend $20,000 and a year. And most people will say, well, I thought it's community property. It is community property. You need to prove to the judge, I'm married. Here's my marriage license. Here's photos of us. And the judge will say, okay, I believe you now. And then we'll enter an order allowing your name to go on the title, and then you can sell it.
And that's its own process.
You're talking about 1 year and about 20 grand later. What a waste of time.
Yeah.
But had they had that house in a trust, again, what a trust is, it's their box. Husband and wife, this is our box. We put the house in this trust. It's not in my name. It's not in her name. It's in the name of the trust. But we are both equal managers of our box. So let's say, wife passes away. I'm in control of this box. So I could take the house out and sell it.
Yeah, your name's on it too.
Right. Now, had they had a trust, she would be the successor trustee, surviving spouse, and sell the house.
Yeah.
The other example I'll give is also very quick. There was a guy who called me. His dad had passed away recently. His mom had passed away many years ago. His dad had passed away, and they had about, I'm just going to make up a number, like $30,000 or $40,000 at Chase Bank
Yeah.
So he goes into the branch and says, hey, my dad passed away. Here's his death certificate. I'm here to take the money out, So, and the bank manager looked at it and says, how am I supposed to give you this money in this account that has your dad's name on it to you?
How do I know you're his son?
How do I know you're his son? Now, they believed he's the son, but how can you legally take this money out of a bank account to give it to him? Mm-hmm. Again, had the dad had a trust, they would name the son as a beneficiary, and the successor trustee, he would come in and say, here's the certificate of trust, that's my name, here's my ID, and that bank account is in that trust. I want to withdraw that money. Here you go, sir. Done.
So this is what they call a living trust.
Right.
So what's the opposite of a living trust?
I don't know, I guess a non-living trust, but...
So how does that work if you're not living anymore?
Right. So they call it a living trust for many different reasons. The reason why it's a living trust is because this box you created, this trust you created is, quote unquote, alive while you're alive.
Okay.
So, and it's what they call revocable, meaning you could take things in and out. So at any time, I could take the house in, take the house out. If I buy more properties, I could change the beneficiaries. So it's kind of living with you.
Got it.
And once you pass away, the box then closes and you can't take anything else out. That's when it becomes irrevocable.
Okay, understood.
Okay, so
that's when you pass away, no one else can add or take out anything from there.
Right.
Okay, so it's not you living, it's your box technically.
Right.
Okay, got it.
And then the trust has to be what's called administrated.
Okay.
Then you appoint the successor trustee, which if it's a husband and wife, the surviving spouse would take over, but assume both spouses pass away, they name a successor trustee, someone else to step in. So it could be their oldest son, it could be an independent party. They step in and all they do is they say, okay, Sevan and Sevan created this trust, they're no longer here. I've stepped in, they look at the trust instructions, that says, give it to our kids equally. Mm-hmm. Take the stuff out, give it to the kids equally. So that's how they do it. They would contact a real estate agent. What gets filed with the county is the certificate of death. So because now it's my name and my wife's name on title. Again, you got to have your name on title.
Yeah.
So they file the certificate of death with the county that says these two people have passed away. The successor trustee, let's say it's my brother Edward, his name gets placed as a successor trustee on title. And then he's able to sell the house for the benefit of the children.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So
a lot of people don't think of these. You buy a house, you're very happy, you just assume you're on your way to building generational wealth. This is for your children or your grandchildren, whatever it is. You don't think of what they will have to deal with, the hoops they have to jump through once you're no longer there with them, just to get that house. And a lot of the times, like you said, $20K and 1 year, first of all, that's a long time. Second of all, that money, not everyone has $20K lying around that they can use. So it might even be longer than a year.
Yeah.
So if you get that done ahead of time, not only will it be cheaper, it's less of a headache, and also you can live just knowing that your family is secure.
That's correct. Yeah. And there's a lot of things that people don't think about. I mean, when you said, I thought it's going to go to my family, it does. But what if you're separated from your spouse and it's supposed to go to, the children of your marriage or something? What if your spouse marries someone else? Do you want your former spouse to get half your assets? No, screw
Why not?
him.
Maybe you had a really great relationship.
Could be. But the point is that maybe you want to just go to your kids, but since you didn't have a trust or directions of what it's supposed to be, this is how it's going to be separated. Mm-hmm. Sometimes my clients, they don't intentionally want to favor one kid over another, but sometimes they want to help one child more than the other because the other probably received more during their lifetime. Mm-hmm. So like, let's say, someone's kid takes out $100,000 with the parents during their lifetime, the parents will might say, look, we already gave you $100,000 during our lifetime and you bought your house. So it's not fair for you to get $100,000 equal distribution later. Yeah. So we can draft a trust documents that instructs, give credit more towards these two because this son got credit or something during their lifetime. So
so there's a lot that you can do. It's just up to what you would like. Absolutely. And also just hiring a professional just so they can make sure that you're aware of all of your options. Right. That's the most important thing. There's only so much you can Google. Like this wasn't a big life decision I was making. It was just questions to ask you. But clearly so much came up that I didn't even think of searching online.
Right. No, there's a lot to it. There's a lot of components to it. And my job is to make it very simple for people. And again, just always imagine, every time you hear the word trust, just think about a magic box, okay? I have a client who has separate businesses, and they have exotic cars,
Okay.
and they have their home. Sure, you would want to name, the surviving spouse as the trustee, but he didn't want, the spouse to be in control of the businesses because, maybe she won't know how to sell it.
Okay.
So we created separate trusts. We created one trust for their personal home. We created another trust just for the businesses, another trust that holds just the exotic vehicles.
Love it.
So now
People and their cars, right?
those assets will flow to the family, but it's who's controlling these boxes.
Yeah.
So that also ensures that your assets will be taken care of. And there's a lot of tax advantage benefits too, okay, which I can't
So
get
is
to.
a will basically just a trust?
That's a great question. People say, what's the difference between a trust and a will?
Yeah.
Okay. Do I need a trust if I have a will? The general answer is yes, you do need both. What the will does is it captures everything that is not in the trust.
Okay.
Imagine you create a trust today, and tomorrow you get gold bars, okay? Which if you do get gold bars, please call me.
But if it's in the house, it doesn't go with the house?
No, let's just say you get some personal property gold bars. Now,
Okay.
your trust at this time, it doesn't reference as an asset that this trust holds gold bars.
Okay.
So what the will do is it captures things in the future. That says, look, anything not in the trust, in my will, I direct my executor to gift it to my trust.
Okay, got it.
So just like if I had a cup, like I'm pouring it into my cup,
Yeah.
the will pours it into the trust. So we call it a pour over will. It pours assets not captured in the trust.
So every
into
time
it.
you get something of value, you don't have to run back and quickly add it into your trust.
Right,
You
exactly.
can basically die knowing that everything is going to the right people.
Right. Now, things that have title, a house has title, cars have title, bank accounts have title, things that have title and name to it, you should go and make sure they're converted into the name of the trust.
Okay.
And we do that for you. We actually do the trust transfer deed that transfers the house into the trust. So bank accounts, same way. So it'll say Margarita on your bank account, but when you create a trust, we tell you how to go switch that bank account into the name of the trust. Now it's going to say Margarita, trustee of the Margarita Family Trust.
Got it.
Now that bank account is inside this box. So the other main difference between a will and a trust is a will does still need to be probated. If you only have a will, if I write, my name is Sevan, and I gift the gold bars, to Margarita, the will does still need to go to probate court. A trust
So
does
you
not.
probably need an attorney.
You
But
would
with a
need-
trust,
Right.
family can manage it.
Right. There's professional that can manage it. So the idea is about privacy. Once the will gets submitted to the probate court, now it's public knowledge. Now I'm going to look up Margarita. I'm going to look at your will and see, what did you have? Who'd you give it to? Why'd you give it to your sister? It creates family drama. A will does not go to probate. It's private. So big difference, public
Yeah.
and private. So that's why people do trusts.
That makes sense. Thank you so much. I feel like I've learned so much in this one session, and I spent like 2 days Googling information and begging people for help.
Don't Google,
and
call me.
Yeah, apparently
Yeah.
Google is not the best form of legal advice. Who would have known, right?
Yeah, and it's not.
Yeah.
It does. I still Google some things myself.
No, I'm totally
but,
kidding, because
yeah.
if you Google, you still have to know what to look for.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's true.
I definitely believe that lawyers are not comparable to Google.
Right. Well, I'm glad you're learning, and the audience too. Again, if you have any questions, I'm always accessible online.
Yes.
You can just call me. I'm happy to
Yes,
answer
and we'll
questions.
definitely add all of your social media in the information below the video, so everyone can access you. And then obviously our website will be up by the time this podcast is released, so you can create I can't even speak today. You can create a profile on the Pocket Network, and then the professionals will be able to access you directly. And then
All right.
hopefully we can convince you to become a Pocket Advisor and give out this information for anyone willing to spend some time
I'd love
and
to.
obviously pay for your expertise.
I don't need to be paid. I'm happy to do it.
Love it. Wow.
No,
Do you sure you don't want us to edit this part out? I'm kidding. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure.
And we definitely need to have you back once I know a little more. Like my sister's slowly teaching me more about law and what I need to know. Once I have more questions,
Sure.
we will call you back and we'll ask you, or if anyone watching, just feel free to comment questions. Let us know what you want answered so that we can ask Sevan next time.
Sure.
And hopefully we have you on the show soon.
I'll be happy to come back. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank
you, everybody.
Thank you. And everyone at home, as always, remember it's up to you to make the changes necessary in your life. It's up to you to apply this knowledge and help your customers. So as we always say, change begins at home.